And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Lasse Gustavson, who's here to share his near-death experience with us today. Lasse, thanks for joining me and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff.
Well, let's start on the day that you had your NDE and go from there.
Yeah, all right. When I was 24 years, this is back in 1981. So it's more than 40 years ago. I'm 69 today. But I was 24 years. I had just finished my education to become a firefighter and ambulance driver. And I think I had been working for almost a week. And one night we had an alarm coming in to the oil harbor in my home city of Gothenburg. And they need some equipment, the firefighters who already were at this place at the oil harbor where there was some kind of gas leak. So I jumped in to the fire truck where Leif, my colleague, was sitting by the steering wheel, and we take off for the oil harbor. There were also another fire truck with equipment, so we were two trucks going to this address in the oil harbor. We didn't receive any more information after we left the fire station. So in one way you can say that we drive a little bit too far, because there were around 10 firefighters waiting at the police stop, but there were two roads to this address, and we took the other road, and there was no firefighters there. So instead of meeting up our colleagues, we went into this gas cloud. And Leif, he started to stop the car immediately when we saw the gas, and he put in the reverse, and the engine died because there was no oxygen, there was no air, there was gas. And I remember that I became ice cold. I understood, because I studied chemistry in we studied chemistry and working at laboratoria, so I understood that this is danger now. And I think that even Leif understood that this is not good. But his goal was to reverse the fire truck. So he tried to start up the engine, and perhaps some spark from the engine make this gas cloud explode. And there was 20 ton of propane gas, so it was a really, really big explosion. 10,000s of people woke up in the middle of the night because they thought it was war or earthquake or something like that. The other fire truck, the engine continued to work there, so they could get back out from this burning gas cloud, but Leif and we were stuck in it. And Leif was the first man to act. I was just trying to protect my eyes like that, but I saw that he was opening up the door, and I remember that he yelled to me, "Run, Lasse." So I was jumping out through the door he left opened, a couple of seconds after him. But it was not better outside, of course, because the atmosphere was on fire. But suddenly I saw a white line in this burning atmosphere, and instinctively, with the instinct, I started to run on this white line. I was closing my eyes, but I take fast look and just control that I was still on this white line. And I was lucky to run back the same way we went in. And I also remember that I saw Leif. He was not running anymore. He was more limping, and he received bigger burns, especially on his legs and his body, than I did. We had help to come into the hospital, and in hospital they put us to sleep. And after a couple of hours, there come an ambulance helicopter and took us to the best burn center in Sweden, and that is in Stockholm. So for 2 months I was in coma, and during this period Leif died. He was alive for 1 month, so we wasn't able to meet and talk about it. And then when I woke up after 2 months, my mom and dad were in Stockholm and visit me when I was laying in coma. So they were here this week, and when they show up in the afternoon, the nurses said that it seems that Lasse is coming back, and it's possible to have contact with him. And they had put a speaking cannula in the hole of my throat, because during this period of 2 months in coma, I was in a breathing machine. But with this speaking cannula in this hole, I was able to talk again. So when mom and dad show up in my room, one of the first thing she said was that Leif died. And that I was not surprised of that, because during this period of coma, Leif and I, we met, and we said thanks and goodbye to each other. And it was not in a mood of sorrow or mistake. It was in the mood that you are when, for example, if you have the ambulance for a night, you had to run the ambulance with a colleague, then you know that we don't have a clue what we will have in the ambulance. The only thing we know is that it's up to you and me to make the best we can together to help people in this ambulance this night. Maybe a child will get birth in the ambulance. Maybe a person will die in the ambulance. We don't know. We just know that it's up to us to do the best together. And you know, after a tough and heavy night, you are extremely tired and exhausted, and you are longing to go home and end up in bed. So what I noticed during this week when I had been working with ambulance and firefighting was that you're very you really want to say thank you to your colleague after a heavy night. Thank you for this night. Now we will go home and just crash in bed. So it was with that feeling Leif and I said, now we are going home. So in our culture, we will say that Leif passed away, but my experience was that he has just went home. And home was different places for Leif and I right now. But so there was not a feeling of mistake. He has went home. That's it. But I had also another kind of strong and very, very liveful experience during this 2 months when I was unconscious. And I was invited in some way to see how everything was starting up, so to say. And I remember that I felt a little bit like, a child in Christmas time, there is presents under the Christmas tree, and in some of these presents is your name on it. I had the same kind of energy. I am invited to see how everything was starting up once upon a time. And someone or something, I can't say if it was a voice, but I was invited to stand on a mountain ridge out in the nature. And on my right side, there was a deep, wonderful, virgin valley. And on the other side of this valley, there was another kind of mountain ridge. And I was standing here on this mountain ridge, and I was looking down in this deep U-shaped valley, and it was really virgin land. It was so beautiful. It was green forests, and it was a blue river in the bottom of this valley. And I remember that it was like an afternoon, summer day. It was warm. It was peaceful. Sometimes I could see that a wind started to make sparks on the surface on this river. And it was a wonderful scene. It was so deep, this valley, so I didn't hear any sound coming up from it. The only thing I heard was a little bee who was seeking for nectar in some wildflowers pretty close to me. And suddenly there was like a big implosion. An implosion is the opposite to an explosion. Leif and I, we had just been in an explosion where 20 tons of propane gas was exploded. But now everything ripped off from the outside, and it was taking everything from this wonderful valley up to the sky, and it take form of an eye up in the sky. And I could see in Iris the planet of Earth. I could see the continents from our planet. I could see the oceans. I could see every little river. I could see every sandbank which we have on this beautiful pearl we call the earth or our home. It was in iris of this eye. So it was a really beautiful scene. And suddenly I also saw from the center of the eye, from the pupil, I saw a ray of light coming out. And this ray of light was, if you can try to imagine, all power and all force in one ray of light. It was so forceful, so immediately I felt very, very small. I felt smaller than a mosquito. And you know, a mosquito, if you have a mosquito on your arm, you can kill it. You have the power to kill the mosquito. No, and this force was millions and millions of times bigger than a human force. So I remember that I took down my eyes because I felt so small when I was facing this force. But before I took down my eyes, I saw that a quality in this ray of light was love. And I understood immediately that this force is not evil. This force will not make any harm. This force is a good force, creating force, because there is also love in it. So I continued to look at this sky in the eye, and I saw a third quality, and it was wisdom. You know, the highest or the deepest knowledge you can imagine, that's what we call wisdom. So this ray of light had three qualities: creating, power, love, and wisdom. And I also saw that it was not only streaming from the eye, this ray of light, it was also coming back into the eye. So it went back. You know, if you throw a ball to a wall, the ball will come back to you. And I saw in the corner of the eye a glint of happiness or humor or satisfaction. There was a wonderful glint in the corner of the eye. It was like this eye was looking at something which was perfect. And you know, as a human being, if you see something you think is perfect, perhaps your child, your grandchild. I have a grandchild today, and you know, he's perfect. And I know that when I'm looking at Alphonse and I feel the love I feel for him, I know that I have this glimpse of satisfaction and happiness in my eye. So this is what I experienced when I was in coma. And this was a so strong experience. So it took me 10 years to put words on it and try to express for a human being what I experienced when I was in coma. 10 years. I was afraid that I will not do justice to this experience when I try to find words, because there is not words enough to make this experience justice. And I remember the first time I talked about it to a woman I was in love with, I noticed in myself that no, it was not possible to talk about this experience and make justice to it. But after a while, I accept that maybe I can talk about it, and maybe people have the fantasy to fill in the picture where there are lack of words. Maybe people can recognize these qualities of creating power, love, and wisdom in themselves. Maybe I can remind people that this is quality we have, everyone, in our soul. Maybe this is the essence of to be alive, that we all have these qualities, creating power, love, and the wisdom. And you know, wisdom, very often the wisdom is silent. But I think very often when you are in trouble or in big decisions, very often you can feel deep in your belly what's right and wrong. So I think that in your head you can think logical things and so on, but deep inside of you, in your heart and in your guts, there is also a source of deep knowledge, which we can call wisdom. I'm a public speaker today, and when I enter a scene, I can have a plan in my head how I will start the talk. But I learned that the first thing who will get up on the scene is my stomach. Because if I am conscious what my feeling in the stomach is when I meet the audience, then I know if I can go on the plan I have in my head, or perhaps I should immediately change my plan because I have a feeling that this audience need another kind of start. Yes, I was very weak when I woke up after 2 months. My body weight was down to 40 kilogram. I don't know how you measure in your country body weight, but my body weight was 80 kilogram before the accident, so I lost half of my body weight during these 2 months when I was in coma, and 40% of my skin was burned away. So I was so naked and so vulnerable and so unprotected when I woke up. I was totally in other people's hands. I was just laying in the bed and I was so naked. So I could feel when nurses changed the bandage on my burns, I could feel their intuition. And you know, everyone who goes to work have some kind of intuition to that. Why do I go to work? Some people, they go to work because they need the money. That's it. But some people, they go to work because they have a mission. They would like to do a good job at work. And I noticed at the burn center that the nurses, every one of them, they have the heart in the work. And I could feel that when they touched my vulnerable body, I could feel the energy that I saw in the eye, the energy of love, the healing energy. They had it in their hands. Especially these nurses who were in balance, who were curious about to do a good work, who were not in stress and had lack of time. Instead, they had time to do it in a good way, do a 100% good work. They had this energy in their hands. And I remember that I felt so comfort and so safe when nurses who had this compassion, the natural wisdom, and the power of doing a good work when they changed the bandage. So what I have understood is that it's not only that in the deepest of you, you have a spark of light which contain three qualities: power, love, and wisdom. It also, so I think that when you are doing things as a human being, you will make some kind of soul mark on your work if you are connected to the center of yourself. And of course, I also noticed when nurses were stressed or if there was a conflict in the group, then it was like clouds who didn't let this energy float out from their hands because there was stress and problems who make them hide this wonderful energy. And I will not say that their hands were cold as robots' hands, but it was not this warm, wonderful compassion feeling when nurses and doctors were in stress and conflict with each other or themselves.
Lasse, thank you for sharing your life with us. If we go back to the time of the explosion, when you were running through the explosion and you saw a white line on the ground, was that white line being generated by the explosion, or was it possibly some otherworldly sign for you on how to escape, like given to you by an angel or something?
I think it was the line in the middle of the road which separate right and left side of the road. I think it was that line.
Oh, okay.
That line, yeah.
Can you remember any more of the conversation that you had with Leif besides telling each other goodbye?
You know, we didn't talk. We just met up and we have this, you know, when you look at a colleague in his eyes, and in his eyes, he said, "Thank you for this night. Now we go home." It was like mission completed in some way. So it was not verbal talk. It was just a connection. We are looking into each other's eyes.
When you were looking at him, did he look like he was before the accident, non-burned?
Yeah. And he also looked that he was in harmony with this. It was what this was meant to be. There was no sorrow in his eyes. It was what this was meant to be.
The eye that was looking at you and had energy coming out as well as coming back in. Do you think that that eye was potentially God looking on you as its own creation and feeling love for you the same way that you do for your grandchild?
I think this is a symbol, and this symbol has different kind of layers. Christian people very often said, you saw God, they are saying, but I don't know if I saw God. I think every description of God is to minimize God, so to say, because I don't know what God looks like, actually. But for me, the first label I put on this experience was, this is not a near-death experience, this is a near-life experience, just beside of death. And I think in universe, it meets, so to say, the opposite meets. So when I was very, very close to my own death, I was also very, very close to the source of life. And I think that this energy who came out from this eye in the sky, who had these qualities, I think this is what we are. Every human being, every animal, every living tree and plant has these qualities. So I also think that there is one source to life in universe. And in our country, we call it God. In other countries, there are other names and so on. But I think there is one source to life in universe. And we are on a journey, and we will also come back home, because this energy goes out from the eye and comes back to the eye.
So would you say collectively we are all that source?
Yeah.
Do you think that the eye was trying to give you a message?
Yeah. And I think the message was that this energy is what you are in the center of yourself. And this is also what you can give to other people and animals and plants during your life. So you can give this. And I also noticed that sometimes I don't have a balance in these three qualities. For example, I have 3 children today. I was 24 years when I was in this accident. I was become a father when I was 36 the first time. So I have 3 children today. They are grown up. But sometimes when you have small children, you love your children, of course, and instinctively you know what they need. You had the wisdom to give them as a parent what they need, but sometimes you are so exhausted that you don't have any power to do it right now. You love them, you know what they need, but you are too tired to give them right now. And then you will not have this glimpse of satisfaction and happiness in your eye, right? And sometimes, you have power and you have knowledge to do harm, for example, revenge. And then you are lack of love, because revenge for me is selfish love. And then you will not have this warm glint of satisfaction and humor in your eye. And sometimes, especially when you're a teenager, you have a lot of power, and you would like to do lovely things, but you don't are connected to the wisdom. You are not experienced. So you will do dumb things, and you will hurt yourself, and it will cost you money and so on. But that's the way to learn. When you have bad experience, you have an opportunity to learn and get wiser. So when there are balance between a force to do things, a goodwill to do it in a loveful way, and you also are connected to a wisdom to not take too long steps, then you will create something, and the ticket or the receipt will be that you have this glint of humor. Wow, this is perfect. This is good. Not too much, not too little. Perfect. And this is a message that I try to live with. To use my power to do things, to have a good, loveful intuition, and not do too much, not do too little, to have a balance, a silent balance of wisdom to do it enough. That's it. Enough is enough, so to say.
After you recovered, you appeared to have some sort of ability like being empathic or understanding people. Have you noticed that you have any other abilities, even ones that could be considered psychic?
I was very able to hear people behind the words when I was so weak, when I was skinless and very weak. When people show up in my room and said, "Good morning, Lasse," I could hear immediately if it was empty words or if there were soulful words. So I can tell you, I was blind when I woke up, so I couldn't see people because my eyes were so together. But I could hear. I could hear between the lines. I could hear back of the words, if they were present, if they were true, or if it was just empty words, or maybe if they were lying, trying to hide something. You can hear that if you are present. If you're totally present, it's very hard to lie to you. And I didn't have words for this. I just noticed that this is how I experienced my parents and my siblings when I was a little child. It reminded me that when I was a little child, I could feel when people were lying or if there was stress, and just put on a good face, a happy smile, which was not a true happy smile. It reminds me that when I was a child, I noticed that, but I didn't have words for it when I was a little child. And I also noticed that my grandson, Alphonse, he's 4 years now. He can feel when people have an agenda, a hidden agenda. And then he don't like that. He just go away with it. But the main message for me is that as a human being, you can give this wonderful energy of creating power, love, and wisdom to what you meet in life.
Have the memories of being with Leif on the other side and being in the presence of the I faded over time?
No, it hasn't. It's very close to me, but I notice that every time I talk about it, it's very easy that I talk about it like I did the last time I talked about it. So if I try to be present, so I get connected to the first experience of this I, then I notice that it will be better energy when I try to talk about it. I heard that if you are witness, for example, to a crime, and the police would like you to witness, every time you talk about what you saw, it start to fade away, I learned. Because you talk about the last time you talked about it. So it's a copy of a copy of a copy, so to say. So I remember this I and the experience around it very well, and I had to be present to talk about it in the original version. And now I do it in English, and whew, it's a little bit hard, actually. Yeah, it's not my mother language.
When you were up on the ridge and you were looking down in the valley, were you experiencing enormous amounts of peace? And today, if you ever do meditation or anything like that, can you ever kind of go back to that place and experience it again?
Yeah, actually, I was a Boy Scout when I was a teenager, and I love to be in nature, because when I am in nature, it helps me to come to this state of mind, of mindfulness and peacefulness. So me and my wife, we have the same interest, that we like to go on tracks in this valley. We like to go on tracks in the summertime. We like to go on tracks in the wintertime on skis. Uh, so to be on a journey out in nature, that's the best thing I can do when I have free time.
If you had a friend that was grieving over the loss of a loved one, what type of advice would you give?
I felt very deep sorrow when I was informed that I didn't have my hands. I have very bad burns on my hands. You see, I just have these two half thumbs, and I was blind, as I said earlier, so I couldn't see my hands, but I noticed that I couldn't spread my fingers, and the nurses, they said that my fingers was amputated and so on. And I remember that I was falling backwards in a deep grief and sorrow for that I lost my hands. And it was also that I saw a lot of pictures when hands had been central in my life. You know, as a Boy Scout, you need hands to use an axe and to pull up your backpack, and to swim and to dance with a woman. So hence, it's a lovely thing. And I was so weak, so I couldn't stop this grief. So I was just falling down in this grief. But I can say that because of the acceptance of this grief, I also could make this circle and come back and new orientate me pretty fast again. So I think it's necessary to have this sorrow and feel the loss of your friend or whatever it is, with no shame, with no. It's not wrong to feel this grief. It's a way to heal. It's one way to heal it. And when you have healed it, you will never forget your loss, but you can learn to live with it in another way than when you are in your grief. And there is, in the Christian way, there is say that there is it's a year, a grief year. Is that does it make sense to say it so? Grief year, yeah. But I don't think it's 365 days, because I think a year it's more that you have to do a circle, and when you have made a whole circle, then you can be able to new orientate after this circle. And if this circle takes a year or 5 years or a half year, doesn't matter. But you had to go the whole circle, and then you can continue. And you can carry your loss in another way.
Do you fear death?
No. I don't look forward for dying, but I don't believe in death anymore. The center of me, the center of you, will continue in other forms. This light will never die. This light will go back home and perhaps take another journey, and so on.
Lasse, after watching this podcast, people may want to reach out to you and ask you questions. Are you open to that? And if
I'm
so,
open to that.
how can they contact you?
On my website, there is an English version, and of course also a Swedish version, and it's pan.se. .se stands for Sweden, and pan it spells like in pandemic. Yeah, and my mail address is lasse@pan.se.
Before we finish up, can you leave us with a last positive message?
Yeah, what could that be? I think that everyone has the power to carry his own life. But I also know from my own experience that sometimes I need support to take my steps on my life road. And after this accident, I had a tremendous support from my colleagues at the fire departments. I have just been working 1 week, but they show up every day during this first year I was in hospital. Every day, colleagues show up and ask me, "Hey Lasse, we are colleagues. We have never met before, but we are colleagues. How are you today?" they ask. And then they stand still, and they could take any answer, no matter what. They were so safe, so comfort to face any answer for me. So they stand still. And every day I had the opportunity to talk about myself, this horrible experience running through burning gas. And I felt that I was involved I was included in a bigger company or society because of my colleagues. You know, after 2 years, I was able to come back to work as a firefighter again. I was not in the front line because of my burns, my hands burns, but I was able to work with support and supply. So I was in the second line and could to give things at the front to the front line, so to say. So I was working for 6 years with this before I started to work as a public speaker in Sweden, Norway, Finland, and so on. But again, you have the power to carry your own life. Sometimes you need support, but you have the power. Everything will change. This too will pass.
Lasse, thank you for your message, and thank you for being my guest.
Thank you, Jeff.
All right.
It was a pleasure.
Well, the pleasure was all mine.
And mine.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.